And now I'll pass this over to Reverend Richard Carlini to introduce our guests today.
Thank you, Don, and thank you, Ann, and thank you, our guests. They said they'd been looking forward to it, and I've been looking forward to it too. I think I hooked Richard. I mean, I think I talked with Richard at the convention this past year. At breakfast, we seemed to be breakfasting a lot at the convention, and I said, "Well, it would be great to have you and Matthew." And it's just great to welcome two friends and two beloved voices in the unity movement this morning. What a joy it is to have Reverend Dr. Richard Held and Matthew Wilson joining us from the Unity Spiritual Center in Westlake, Ohio. And a little bit about both of them. Reverend Dr. Richard Held's path to ministry has been one of deep spiritual seeking and lifelong dedication to teaching truth principles. Over the decades, he served congregation, including many years as senior minister at Unity in Linwood, in Linwood, Washington, and you all know our beloved Barbara Thorpe, who joins us every now and then, and who's been with the chaplains, and is currently still at Unity of Linwood and was Richard for a number of years. And Richard himself has become known through the Unity and New Thought movement as a thoughtful teacher, an author, a workshop leader, and he's also collaborated with and hosted many well-known spiritual voices, including Marianne Williamson, Maya Angelou, and the Dalai Lama, reflecting his commitments to interfaith dialogue and expanding spiritual awareness wherever he is. And one of my favorite voices around the country, Matthew Wilson. Matthew's journey's been rooted in music from an early age. Trained as a classical vocalist, he's performed and with respected symphonies and choral ensembles, including the Kansas City Symphony and the Grammy award-winning Kansas City Chorale. Yet Matthew's deeper calling has been bringing music into the spiritual community. During his years in Linwood, Matthew's voice and musical leadership became a central part of the worship experience, and he has shared his music at Unity churches and regional gatherings across the country. It's my pleasure and my joy to have them here with us today. Please help me welcome Reverend Dr. Richard Held and Matthew Wilson. Good morning, gentlemen.
This is a song we wrote called Peace Be Still. I invite you to join me on it. It's a simple melody. Peace be still. Peace be still. Peace be still. Peace be still. Still be peace. 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 Be here now. 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 Now here be. 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 I am light. 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 Light am I. 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 Peace be still. Peace be still. Peace be still, peace be still, peace be still.
I am so happy to be with you. So happy. So thank you. You might have this handled, but one encouragement I like to introduce is gratitude. Would you, in your heart, just hold your beloved Rich Carlini in a moment of gratitude to start our time together? Just hold him in a spirit of gratitude. You know, you have something special there. You have a noble leader. You have one of my favorite unity leaders on the planet. I want you to know that. I want you to know that. Your staff, they have taken outstanding care of us. Please consider dropping somebody a thank you note today, a little email of gratitude. Let them know that the work of Unity Davis extends beyond this amazing group of souls to touch lives in places you don't even know. So I'd like to share some things with you this morning. And these are things that my community doesn't even know about me. So you're the first. And I'd like to begin by saying that when you look at me for the first time, chances are you see a guy, you see a man, maybe you see a Caucasian man, maybe you see a senior. I'm still getting used to that one. I'm still getting used to that one. I mean, I'm getting used to saying, I would like one adult ticket and one senior ticket, please. That's taking me a little while to get that in my mouth, as we say. You might see a runway model when you look at me. I mean, I'm not going to take that away from you. Or maybe a finely honed athlete. It really doesn't matter. As the kids today like to say, you know what? You do you. In either case, in any case, whether you see a man or a teacher, maybe a forward for your Kings. Yes, I happen to be a basketball fan as well. I'd like to begin by disclosing that my life didn't begin that way. In fact, one of my earliest memories is the summer I spent as a cat. Now, when I say spent as a cat, I'm talking about morning after morning after morning, not only spent crawling around the feet of an old oak table, but also crawling around the feet of an old maternal grandmother and an old Italian neighbor, as they did, what retired women of that age did in small town Kansas in 1971. They drank coffee and they traded news. Now, I should pause to say that if you did not grow up with a first generation Italian grandmother for a neighbor, you may have missed something. If you get the chance to join a rousing game of bocce ball, as Midwesterners still call it, while sipping wine made in a garage with a bunch of men in sleeveless t-shirts, my advice, do it. Do it. Now, nonetheless, whether it was a summer or a year, I really can't say. What I can say is that morning after morning would find me, just a circling and a purring and otherwise annoying any number of adults who, for whatever reasons, they just allowed me to be my cat self. Now, this wasn't the last of my early personas. Following that particular summer, maybe it was a year, I became a cowboy. Now, I know there are others in this room, male, female, it doesn't matter, who can relate to getting up every morning, pulling on those same boots, followed by, a holster, not with one, mind you, but with two pistols. The world needed a lot of justice back then, you see. And of course, completed, as was unavoidable, by donning that giant cowboy hat. And yes, that same maternal grandmother who put up with circling and purring graduated to, well, all the shuffling and sagaciousness one might expect from a 6'4" John Wayne hero housed in a 5'2" Mickey Rooney body. And I mimicked the wisdom of John Wayne, why I would thumb that revolver of mine and regurgitate iconic lines such as, well, talk low, talk slow, and don't say too much. Or how about this one? I've tried to live my life so my family would love me and my friends would respect me. This from a 7-year-old wearing a holster, you understand. My favorite one went like this. Life is tough, but it's tougher if you're stupid. That's John Wayne. Now, some of these, of course, I could use on my grandmother. Others I couldn't. She was really quite a saint. And, of course, the third and final of my early personas, that cowboy eventually gave way to a private detective. Now, it's undeniable that this third persona was absolutely influenced by Hollywood, because somewhere there still exists a desk. Now, you know, the kind that had a flip-up top, an attached seat, Formica top, and on that Formica top, wherever it may be, is still etched the word Mannix. Now, Mannix, admittedly, was an amalgamation of the Detective Mannix and Jim Rockford from the Rockford Files, who also drove a Pontiac Firebird and made $150 an hour plus expenses. You get the point. Private detective was the next hurdle for that maternal grandmother to navigate. I mean, today's parents, yeah, we get to navigate kids who maybe identify as gay or atheist. I'm not sure it was much easier for my grandmother, who got to navigate a cowboy and a private detective, all of which are recalled for you today as introduction to a conversation that I've called Heroes, Helpers, and Heartbreakers, because while you most likely did not spend a season as a cat or a cowboy or a detective, I suspect you can relate to having pressed your way into this human incarnation driven by something that you brought with you. Now, I'm not a cat today. But that essential self of me, now some might call it soul, that essential self of me who was fiercely independent in thought, fiercely independent in deed, that essential self of me who in a very real sense chose to see his world through his self-chosen lens beneath a kitchen table, mind you, that essential self of me remains fully intact today. And I think you can tell by looking, I'm also not a cowboy today. It's true. But that essential self of me, who still thinks that all words are powerful, that our agreements are sacred, that all life is worthy, that essential self of me remains fully intact. And of course, I'm not a private detective. Now, for those ministerial leaders listening to the sound of my voice, this is not to say that some private detecting doesn't come in handy from time to time in ministry. In fact, it does. I'm not a private detective today, but that essential self of me who loves to engage the mystery, who loves to dig for understanding, who loves to empower the stranger, that essential self of me remains fully intact. He doesn't drive a Pontiac Firebird, and he still doesn't make $150 an hour plus expenses, but he is fully intact. Your theme is living authentically. I'd like to speak into that theme by reviewing a couple basic unity concepts. First, and probably most important, take a deep breath with me. You are not a body. You are not a body. what I like to call that essential you as existed long before you assumed that physical form and will continue long after you relinquish that physical form. You know, we tend to speak of life and death as opposites, when in truth we would do better to speak of birth and death as opposites. Birth being the vehicle for our entrance into this experience, death being our vehicle for our exit from this experience. This helps us, this rearticulation helps us grasp that birth and death, well, they may visit us, but they do not define us. We call birth a beginning because, well, from our limited views, it looks like one. And we call death an ending because from our limited views, it looks like one. And yet, were we able to expand far enough beyond those limited views imposed by a human incarnation, the kids today might say, were we able to zoom out, we would come to see that birth and death are but two sides to the single coin of life. That every birth into something is also a death from something, and that every death from something is also a birth into something. This is a theme that saturates your Judeo-Christian library. It is certainly a theme that saturates Christianity's Holy Week. We die to the old, we rise to the new, both again and again and again and again. How provocative is it to consider that what we call birth is also a soul dying from a reality we cannot see? And how comforting is it to consider that what we call death is a soul birthing into a reality that we cannot see? I like to think that that's why the holy moment of passing is so often met with such a peace, as if to say, this is really a new beginning. This is where I begin to touch the idea of God as love. I don't touch the idea of God as love when I think I will stay in my body. I begin to touch the idea of God as love when I grasp that I am more than a body. I like to call this the river from which I sift the philosophical gold that unity offers in navigating matters of, gender, orientation, disease, yes, birth and death, everything body-centric, basically. Unity has such lovely and unique value to bring. All this to say, you are not defined by dates that appear on birth certificates and tombstones. You are something beyond those transient experiences. You are something eternal, something enduring, something expansive. And while each of us gathered here today is most certainly formed to some degree by matters of environment, there is something of that essential self that was with you. It was of you when you came screaming into this incarnation. You arrived with something of a purpose as a product of the consciousness you have developed over eternity. You arrived with something of a purpose. And while the child will give form in the ways of a child, and while the worker will give form in a worker's ways, and while the sage, I love to think that I'm coming into the sage era. Doesn't that just sound nice? The sage era. While the sage will give rise in the form of a sage, that foundational something will be found in all of it. Yeah, the child may have expressed that fierce independence as a cat, but let me tell you, this adult continues to express it as a leader by challenging the stuck ways of minds and cultures, by questioning unexamined assumptions and rote conclusions. This is good for churches, by the way, to question unexamined assumptions and rote conclusions. It takes about 90 good seconds for those closest to me to learn that starting any sentence by saying, well, you know, the way it's always been done, that is never a celebrated conversation starter here. Beyond that, it's really quite theologically problematic to suggest that the infinite wisdom which we call God would hide our unfolding evolutionary good in yesterday's comfortable habit. Beyond that, it just makes no sense. The child may have expressed that sense of justice as a cowboy, but let me tell you what, this adult continues to express it as a teacher by creating programs that allow a diversity of people to come together and to fall in love. I like to say that I create programs that facilitate our rehumanization of each other in a dehumanizing society for the greater good of the family of life. As a teacher, and as a teacher of unity, I suggest that outer things are products of inner things. And so mine is not to join the throngs of souls ever entrenching themselves in the idea that we will get to love when the world at long last gets its stuff together, but that the world will get its stuff together when we, at long last, get to love. This adult still supports the idea all words are still powerful, all agreements are still sacred, all life is still worthy. It's just that what drove that 7-year-old cowboy from his imaginary horse now drives this 61-year-old man from his church platform. The child may have expressed his love of mystery as a private detective. This adult expresses it as a minister by finding creative ways to say the same thing again and again and again. That the reality which we call God most certainly cannot be contained by any single faith tradition. That each of us is on his, her, their journey of awakening, and that whatever journey you might be on, it's the right journey for you. How much do you love being involved in a movement of education instead of conversion? I love that about unity. To reference Hindu lore, there really are many ways to climb the same mountain. To reference Rabbi Ted Falcon, all traditions are just unique paths to a shared universal. To reference our friend Ram Dass, we really are just walking each other home. I still engage the mystery. I still dig for understanding. I still love to empower the stranger. So yes, I'm willing to suggest that for whatever uncertainties, for whatever tensions, incompletions you might be facing, the core problem isn't that you don't know what to do. The core problem is that you know exactly what to do, but you refuse to listen. You know exactly what to do because you arrived with the accumulated wisdom of eternity in the very bosom of you. And it's still there. And it's still speaking. Take a deep breath with me. Let's close the outer eyes for a moment of listening then. I allow my feet to find the floor. I allow the very physicality of me in the manner best suited to me simply to prepare itself for wisdom to speak. And this becomes our question this morning. When I look back upon those earliest years, who was that young person? Who was that? What did they value? What did they represent? resisting any temptation to argue or accept, reject, engineer, fix, coerce. We just observe. Holding whatever image you might have conjured of that young person in a spirit of love, in a spirit of gratitude. Love and gratitude for everything they've been. Maybe we turn to the next question. What wisdom might they give us as adults for the living of a life? And we listen, resisting any temptation to pull in or push back. What wisdom might they give for the living of a life? Continuing to hold that image in love and gratitude. We begin to just bring our attention back to this sensory experience.
Last night I saw that movie, the one about the wooden boy. The good news is he could feel no sadness. The bad news is he could feel no joy, and it hit me hard. A puppet on a shelf. So when he wished on that far-off star, you know I made that same wish for myself. I want to be real, real. Drop the act, take off the mask and feel real, real. Well, I've been going through the motions, pulled by invisible strings, and I pushed down the hurt and I held back the tears and covered up the dreams. But beneath it all, trying hard to breathe, the me I buried long ago is screaming to break free. I want to be real, real. Drop the act, take off the mask and feel real. I want to be real. Let the fear go, let the heart show, let the world see me. I want to be real. Oh, and goodbye, wooden heart, and goodbye, painted smile. I want to dance in a crowd, I want to laugh out loud, I want to act like a fool, I want to be uncool, I want to cry when I hurt, I want to sweat when I work, I want help when I fall, I want to feel it